it matters that I am without emotion because it would mean that I am without feeling towards others. It would mean that I am psychotic, being in this like complete criminal control of myself and other people. And that is absolutely foreign to everything that I am.
And I think feelings and emotions are the key to understanding not only Amanda Knox and also Meredith, but also the true dynamic of this case. And a lot of that is unlocked when you go into the immature aspects. Because, for example, a big part of that is Halloween. The night prior to the murder, Meredith and her friends all wanted to be photographed next to a boy dressed as Harry Potter. This is on Halloween. Again, that's the mindset one has to keep in mind when dealing with this case. It might not mean very much to you, but it does mean a lot to young people finding themselves. How does it feel to be treated with scorn, opprobrium, and disapproval when you're trying to enjoy yourself? And, you know, it's quite an important thing, this process of self-discovery. While others during this process, and even worse, have foisted on you where you live by almost complete strangers for the first time in your life as well. You know, they are foisting onto you scorn and disapproval. You know, at the time that you are trying to gain confidence and grow, you meanwhile being treated with contempt. How does that feel? Well, very frustrating.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic shoes in true crime. And so Verlaine goes on to write, if it really was a joke, meaning if the vibrator really was a joke, why was it on show? Amanda must have put the vibrator and the condoms on display to show off. For Sophie, owning a vibrator didn't mean Amanda had killed Meredith, but showing off with it had struck Meredith as weird. And that is something that comes across again and again. Amanda Knox showing off. She also shows off in the courtroom. Isn't she still showing off now? All these interviews she gives, she's showing off who she is. She's showing off her triumph over everybody else. In any event, that day, none of Meredith's English friends even looked at Amanda when they testified. That alone should tell you something. The mother of one of them confided, the trial dragging out for so long makes it tough for the girls. For them, it's as if everything keeps coming back to Meredith all the time. And then on the 14th of February 2009, again this idea of contempt, disrespect, everything's a joke. And some people might say, no, you know, this is who I am, allow me to be myself. Someone else might say, but it's not appropriate. And so there was even a difference amongst the journalists when Amanda showed up on that day with a shirt saying, all you need is love. And she wore that for Valentine's Day. But she's basically creating a show of herself. She's putting herself on show as if the courtroom, her own murder trial, is a kind of a stage. And she's the main character. And she is trying to see what reaction she gets. And she did get a reaction. Some lawyers smiled at Amanda's tribute to the Beatles, which is her favorite band. Others shook their heads. Journalists in the press gallery forgot all about the Kircher case for a while and fiercely debated the T-shirt's significance. And whenever this happened, Amanda Knox must have felt like that's the conversation she wants to have, and she wants others to have. A conversation about her, not a conversation about Meredith or about evidence. And so some of them said, she's behaving like a teenager, she's facing a life sentence, blah, 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 blah. And so what comes up repeatedly in the narrative is the idea of Knox showing off. Certain things are a joke to her, but she also gets annoyed, just as is the currency of high school, cycles of humor and indignation. You see where she wears the all you need is love shirt to her own murder trial, how this actually riles up almost everyone as inappropriate. Well, let me ask you, do you think it's appropriate to wear something like that? If Richard Allen, who's just been convicted in the Delphi case, wore a t-shirt to court, all you need is love, what do you think people would think? Or Brian Koberger, or Casey Anthony, or Chris Watts, what would you think? And if you think it's all a joke, this is the flip side of the jokey narrative, that everything's a joke. And this came up at around about the same point in the trial. And so we go to the Telegraph's coverage of the trial at the same time that Folane was covering it, and in court. Quote, Miss Knox allegedly claimed to have been the first to have found Miss Kircher, an account which contradicts evidence heard last week by Italian police, who said they were the first to discover the murder after the door to Miss Kircher's bedroom was kicked in on their orders. Amanda kept saying, I found her. How do you think I feel? Said Miss Butterworth. So that was Robin's testimony, saying that Amanda keeps saying, I found her. How do you think I feel? And that is what Meredith's friend is talking about. But it's really in the context of the actual murder that this aspect becomes the most disturbing. One of the things the girls testified to was hearing Knox claim that she found Meredith, and as such, she should be the authority, right? She should be kind of the most important person. She should be respected on what happened to Meredith. Through Meredith's murder, Amanda Knox should be seen as this very credible and important person who needs to almost rise above all of Meredith's friends as the most key and the most crucial person, the most important person out of that whole group. Now we go back to the Telegraph. These are Robin's words. She seemed proud, this is Knox, and this is Robin talking about her. She seemed proud to have found the body, to have found Meredith. I heard her say that Meredith was in the closet with a blanket over her. Now that statement possibly was a realization that, oh no, I shouldn't have said that, but if I add that, then it looks like I was lying, or it looks like I was exaggerating, and then that cancels out the fact that I claimed to have found the body. Anyway, we go to the Independent. Robin also testified, I don't know who she was talking to. She was talking to the room. I didn't want to talk to her because I found it quite upsetting. I was really upset that she was even mentioning these things. I removed myself. I didn't want to know. I also remember her talking on the phone saying, it could have been me. How do you think I feel? I found her. She kept talking about how she had found Meredith. She sounded proud that she had been the first to find her. It's showing off, and there's nothing wrong with it in general, but showing off in this area, doesn't it become incriminating? Doesn't it become showing off in terms of a murder, that you are the most important person who knows the truth about the murder, right? Knowing how she found Meredith, how she died, describing how she died, and doing so, Knox can be very, very sensitive when it comes to herself, and tearful even. Do we ever see that when she describes Meredith? Was she like that here? Because she describes saying that she found Meredith, describes how she died, before it was even published in the media, and also that Meredith was found when the police were there, right? The police were there when Meredith was found. They didn't say they arrived there and Amanda opened the door and walked into the room. That's not what happened. So why does Amanda say that? And that seems to be taking it further than showing off, doesn't it? Because in the strictest sense, Knox didn't find Meredith when she said she did. And in the narrow legal sense, this isn't true either. Now from The Guardian, Knox did not enter Kircher's bedroom when the door was finally opened in the presence of the police. But Butterworth said that when a second British friend, Natalie Hayward, I think that should be Natalie Hayworth, commented at the police station that she hoped Kircher had not suffered, Knox replied, what do you think, she fucking bled to death? Now again, does that speak about someone who's being sensitive or utter contempt? What do you think? Saying about someone that has died, she fucking bled to death, to people who are crying. Do you think that is dealing with it in a considerate way, or a way that is disrespectful and contemptuous? Do you think it's appropriate? Then, according to the Standard, Knox 20 boasted about finding the semi-naked body of 21-year-old Meredith as they all waited in the Perugia police station to speak to officers. And suddenly, where's the joking around? Where is it? Where's the joking around? Where's the goofiness in the most deadly aspect of all? Now Knox is saying, she fucking bled to death. Just think how that comment is bristling with contempt. It's not just insensitive, it's an assertion of dominance, authority, and power, isn't it? I just want to reassert the Guardian's coverage of this, just to be absolutely clear. Knox did not enter Kirch's bedroom when the door was finally opened in the presence of the police, but Butterworth said that when a second British friend, Natalie Hayward, commented at the police station that she hoped Kirch had not suffered. Now just think about that. Someone saying, I really hope Meredith didn't suffer. She's died, but I hope she didn't suffer. Knox instead says, of course she fucking suffered. What do you think? Of course she fucking suffered. And is Knox saying that to be factual, or is Knox apparently even taking some kind of sadistic satisfaction in communicating that? Don't you think it's hurtful to be saying what she's saying in that way? And Knox is absolutely right. Meredith did suffer. But wouldn't there have been a kinder, more considerate way to say that? It's also Knox that knew that Meredith suffered and took a while to die. I mean, how would you know that early on? So, according to the Telegraph, Knox allegedly replied, what do you think? She fucking bled to death. They slit her throat. She died slowly and in a lot of pain. She died slowly and in a lot of pain. How did Knox know this? Prosecutors say that police officers revealed nothing of how Miss Kircher was killed, and that Miss Knox could only have known such details if she had seen the body. And this was confirmed by Dr. Lully. The pathologist said, yes, she did have an agonizing death. She did take a long time to die. She didn't even die of bleeding out. She died of asphyxia. That takes a while. Dr. Lully found large pools of dark fluid in Meredith's lungs, and a lot worse. I'm just not going into the graphic details here. But think about also those words, they slit her throat. How did Knox know there was more than one perpetrator as early as November 2nd when she said those words? She didn't say he slit her throat or someone slit her throat. She said they. Prosecutors say that police officers revealed nothing of how Miss Kircher was killed, and that Miss Knox could only have known such details if she had seen the body. Now suddenly the showing off takes on a whole new hue, doesn't it? Forlane writes, late that evening, after 4 hours of questioning, Natalie Hayward, an English friend of Meredith's, was shown into the waiting room where she heard Amanda say in an aggressive tone, that's also important, Amanda speaking aggressively, that if she had been in the cottage that night, she would be dead too. And then Natalie said, well, let's hope she didn't suffer. What do you think? They cut her throat, Natalie. She fucking bled to death. And Natalie said she was chilled by Amanda's words. What also stands out about Knox is she never seems to shed a single tear about Meredith. And yet she does become tearful when she thinks about herself. In court, when pictures were shown of Meredith, this is something else, another great detail brought up by Forlane. When pictures were shown of Knox herself growing up, but also outside the cottage on the day of the incident, Knox became tearful. Listen to this. When a TV interview with Quintavale was shown on a giant screen in court, glimpses of Amanda's life before her arrest unexpectedly unfolded before the court. Amanda smiling and laughing in family photographs. A tipsy Amanda wagging her finger at the camera at a party with her student friends. Right? This is all Amanda growing and living her life and being herself, being allowed to be herself. And then Amanda looking hunted. I'm not sure if that should be haunted in the garden of the cottage on the day Meredith's body was discovered. Today's Amanda stared at the images of herself, looking as if she was about to cry. That's in court. She's seeing herself. That makes her cry. It's not what happened to Meredith that makes her cry. It's what happened to her that makes her cry. And so when Amanda says, her feelings need to be acknowledged, I think that's right. I think that's true.
It matters that I am without emotion because it would mean that I am without feeling towards others. It would mean that I am psychotic, being in this like complete criminal control of myself and other people. And that is absolutely foreign to everything that I am.
It's interesting that Amanda uses the word psychotic there, not psychopathic. Anyway, the bottom line when it comes to immaturity, it actually has zero to do, again, with what you or I think of another, of a younger person's maturity, and everything to do with how they perceive their journey into society and how their peers perceive them, and if there's any disconnect there. And in this case, there most certainly was a disconnect in terms of how peers perceived one another's relative maturity/immaturity. It's a lot like the thing in high school where your friends decide what's cool and what isn't, and whether you are or you aren't. In other words, you are either validated and brought into existence, brought along, where you belong and you are allowed to participate and join parties and grow and experience, or you're rejected, excluded, mocked, minimized, undermined, all of those things. Basically treated with contempt. Remember, 2007 was also the year Facebook came online. And guess who were the main users of Facebook early on? University students. What were Amanda and Meredith and people of their age group? What were they? They were the primary users of Facebook. MySpace was just kind of giving way to Facebook. So you have the double blow of being invalidated in the real world and on social media, where there's the photos posted and then everyone commenting on how great it was, and then someone on the outside looking in. That's what I missed out on. And so we're also going to go to an article from Andrea Vogt. I think it's from a Seattle publication. Quote, "The day's testimony also revealed many new details about Kircher's last days. Two of her friends testified that the only time Kircher was described as having been worried was when asked to water the pot plants that belonged to the Italian boys." Going further into the article, Kircher joined several of the English girls to have pizza that evening. They looked at the Halloween photos on the internet. That's the night that Meredith was actually murdered, and watched a film. Don't you think Amanda Knox also looked at those same photos? Also looked on the internet. And so a legitimate question is, what happened to Amanda Knox's Facebook page? Status quo is an extremely high-stakes game in high school, but is arguably even more high-stakes just after high school, especially while overseas, especially when you're in a close-knit expat community or society, when you are trying to get your life going, and it's fully up to you to grab the bull by the horns if you want to live your best life. But what do you do when all of that is on the cards? Meanwhile, someone enters the picture and stands in your way. The same thing in court. What if someone says embarrassing things about you in front of a large audience in court? Well, you stand up for yourself. That's if you're still feeling raw, if you're still feeling insecure, if you're still feeling inadequate. Well, was Amanda Knox?
You can take my word for it. Your mother had it coming.
And in this clip from Kill Bill Volume 1, it really cleverly shows the very human response to something like contempt. Like someone saying, "Wow, your mother had it coming. How do you think that little girl feels?" And then her mother's murderer has the audacity to say the following.
When you grow up, if you still feel raw about it, I'll be waiting.
There's still more to say about that, but I'm not going to take it further than that. I'm not really going to continue analysis on the Amanda Knox case, but there is one box we have yet to tick, and that is Raffaele Sollecito. What do we not know about him? And what is Raffaele? It was a guy that Amanda Knox apparently fell in love with, had a relationship with. What does he tell us about her? Like, what kind of guy was he? And we'll deal with that in the next episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.